Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we are making a traditional Puerto Rican style pernil. This bone-in, skin-on pork shoulder is marinated for a minimum of 12 hours in the fridge. It's roasted low and slow for 4 hours before turning the heat up for another hour to give it that signature crispy, crunchy chicharrón topping. It's definitely a labor of love, but it is 100% worth the work. Let me show you how to do it. So we're gonna start by making our marinade in our pilon, mortar and pestle, or you could also do this in a food processor. We're adding tons of garlic and fresh oregano, as well as adobo seasoning and some salt. And we're just gonna mash that together until we create a paste-like consistency. Again, I like to do this in my pilon, but you can totally just blend this up in a blender or a food processor. You just wanna make sure that the garlic turns into kind of a paste and gets broken down really well. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this into a bowl just because we're about to add some achiote oil and this can stain my pilon, so I like to just do this in a separate container. And then we're mixing in our sofrito and achiote oil. Again, if you're doing this in a food processor or in a pilon that's like a dark brown color, you don't have to transfer to another bowl. Just mix everything together until it looks like this. It's a super flavorful but very simple paste that is going to make an incredibly flavorful marinade for our pork. All right, next we are going to start to prep our pork. So I like to rinse my pork really well just to make sure it is very clean. I do this with a mixture of white distilled vinegar and water, and we're just gonna pour this mixture all over the pork. I do a 50-50, like 50% water, 50% white vinegar, and just pour it on the pork until the water is coming off clean. This really helps to get rid of any of that blood that the pork has been sitting in and give you a nice clean slate. And then from there, I like to pat this dry with paper towels just to make sure it is nice and dry before we add our marinade. Okay, so from here, we are ready to start working with the fat cap. Now, you can't make pernil without this skin and fat cap attached, but the key to getting it really nice and crispy is actually detaching it before you marinate and roast. So with a super sharp knife, I'm just going in and carefully separating the fat cap from the meat. This does take a little bit of patience and time and lots of just checking to make sure you're not cutting too deep, adjusting your knife, and then going back in. Most of the times when I've made this recipe, the fat cap is attached all the way around that pork shoulder, which requires you to kind of flip it over and detach it on that side like you see me doing here as well. Some people do like to keep it attached on this section, but that's kind of just up to personal preference. I like removing it all the way so that I can really get in there deep with the marinade and not worry about getting marinade all over the fat cap. Because as you'll see later, keeping the fat cap dry and clean is another key step in getting it to crisp up nicely. Okay, so you can see here, I'm just going in and removing that skin as carefully as possible until I can completely lift this fat cap off of the meat. And once I'm able to do that, I like to just transfer it into the baking dish where I'm gonna roast and marinate the whole thing. That way I have the whole cutting board to work with this pork shoulder. So at this stage, we're gonna go ahead and make deep, wide cuts into this pork shoulder, deep into the flesh, all around the top and the bottom. And then we're ready to add our marinade. I usually do half on the top and half on the bottom. And we're just gonna rub this in really well all over. You want every part of this piece of meat to be covered with this marinade. And then we're gonna also make sure to push lots of this marinade into those deep cuts that we made into the flesh. This is just going to help to create big flavor all throughout the meat, resulting in a super flavorful and juicy pork. So yeah, we'll just keep rubbing this all over the meat until we've used all of the marinade, until every one of those deep cuts is filled with that garlic adobo mixture. And once you've got this all covered, we're going to go ahead and grab our fat cap and just lay it on top. Grab a paper towel and dry it off any of that marinade that may have gotten on the skin. Just make sure that you're wiping that clean and dry. We just don't want any moisture on here because moisture is the enemy of that crispy skin. And then we're gonna sprinkle it with the remaining salt that we have. We're gonna rub that salt in, and this is just gonna help to pull any of that excess moisture out of that skin while it marinates. Okay, so here we are ready to transfer this into our baking dish. I like to use an aluminum baking dish just because it's easy to work with and makes for super easy cleanup. I'm gonna cover this and add to my refrigerator. You can marinate for a minimum of 12 hours, but 2 to 3 days is ideal. And once that marinade is done, you can pull this from the fridge, bring it to room temperature while your oven preheats. And then we're gonna add some liquid to the base of our baking dish. I like to do fresh squeezed orange juice, but you could also just do water. That works totally fine. And then one last time, we are wiping this pork skin dry, just making sure to grab any of the excess moisture that may have been pulled out from that salt. Then we're gonna cover this up again, and we are going to roast it at 325 degrees for 4 to 5 hours, or until it reaches an internal temperature of 175 degrees. Then once it's reached that temperature, we're gonna turn the heat up to 400 degrees, remove the foil, and roast it uncovered. And this is where the magic happens, and you see that chicharrón is gonna crisp up and become so delicious and crunchy. You have to watch it closely at this stage to make sure it doesn't burn, and you can pull it from the oven when the skin is crispy all over. It should look a little something like this and sound crispy like a drum, okay? I'm not exaggerating when I say it needs to be crispy all over. It should sound like this. And because we removed that fat cap completely, it should pull off just like this. And I like to just set it aside while I shred up or cut up my pork shoulder. And this task should be quite simple. The meat should be easy to shred, easy to come off of the bone. You can see I'm literally just using a fork here, and pulling this bone off of the pork shoulder was incredibly easy. It's mandatory for the chef to have the first bite, and here I am in literal heaven. It's so much fun being in charge of shredding and cutting this meat, because you just get to find all of the most amazing juicy pieces. Like, check this out. I don't think it gets any better than that. And then all of those juices at the base of our roasting pan are the pan drippings from the fat and that orange juice. You can toss the pork in that before serving it. And then I recommend cutting up the chicharrón into little individual servings with kitchen scissors. You can serve this alongside all of your favorite holiday sides. Highly recommend some arroz con gandules or arroz con habichuelas. Definitely cut that chicharrón into enough pieces so that everyone gets a bite. Again, this is one of those labors of love that is so worth the work. It's such a fun recipe to make and share with loved ones around the holidays. I had to give my dog and my husband a bite before we served this on our holiday table, and it got glowing reviews all around. If you guys give this a try, please let me know what you think. Leave a comment below, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for being here.